What if I told you that there was a moment in American history when the US government didn't just tax your wealth, it took it. Not through inflation, not through hidden fees, not through the IRS. No, this time, the government literally demanded that every citizen walk into a bank and hand over their gold. And the craziest part, most Americans today have no idea it ever happened. This story isn't taught in school. It's not in your standard history books. And yet, it changed the global financial system forever, reshaping money itself, redefining property rights, and setting the stage for the world of debt, fiat currency, and central banking we live in today. Because this wasn't just a gold grab, it was the single most powerful financial maneuver in US history, a move that didn't just seize wealth, it changed what wealth meant. Today we're going to uncover how it happened, why it happened, and how its effects still shape your savings, your debt, and even the money in your pocket. Welcome to the government gold grab they don't teach in school. Section 1, Setting the Stage. Why gold mattered before. We get to the moment the US government seized its citizens' gold. We need to understand why gold was such a big deal in the first place. For thousands of years, civilizations trusted gold because it had something no currency created by rulers could match. It couldn't be printed, it couldn't be devalued by decree, it couldn't be manipulated at will. Gold is nature's money, immune to political agendas, promises, and human mistakes. By the early 20th century, gold wasn't just a shiny metal, it was the foundation of the global monetary system. The US dollar was backed by gold at a legally fixed price, $20.67 per ounce. If you had a $20 bill, you could walk into a bank and redeem it for nearly an ounce of gold. That wasn't just symbolism, it was a promise. And as long as that promise held, the people trusted the currency. But then everything changed. Section 2, Origins. America's Great Crisis. The story begins in 1929. The stock market collapses, banks fail, businesses shut down, millions lose their jobs. The Great Depression hits like a financial earthquake. And when people panic, what do? They rush to the safest asset they know, gold. People began withdrawing gold from banks. Foreign governments started redeeming dollars for gold as well. And the US Treasury, the keeper of America's gold, started to run dangerously low. Every ounce that left the vault made it harder for the government to defend the dollar's fixed gold price. And here's the part your teacher never told you. The government couldn't print its way out of the crisis. Because the dollar was tied to gold. If it printed too many dollars, people would immediately redeem them for gold, draining the nation's reserves. The US was trapped. The gold standard was a golden cage. Something drastic had to be done, or so they believed. Section 3, The Rise of a New Plan. Enter FDR in 1933. Franklin Delano Roosevelt took office. He was elected to rescue the country from an economic nightmare, and he moved fast. Within days of becoming president, FDR closed America's banks in what was called a bank holiday. People weren't allowed to withdraw money, especially not gold. But even that wasn't enough. Behind closed doors, the administration had already decided, to save the system, they needed to control the gold. Not just government gold. Everyone's gold. This wasn't about coins, this was about power. Because whoever controlled the gold, controlled the money, and whoever controlled the money, controlled the economy. Section 4. The Breaking Point. Executive Order 6102 on April 5, 1933. Something extraordinary happened. Executive Order 6102, a document so controversial that even today, many Americans have never heard of it and textbooks conveniently skim over it. The order stated that all citizens must turn in their gold coins, gold bullion, and gold certificates to the Federal Reserve, or face up to 10 years in prison. Imagine that for a moment. Your legally owned wealth, something Americans had held for generations, was suddenly illegal to possess. The government offered compensation, of course. You would be paid the official price of $20.67 per ounce, but you didn't really have a choice. It was the law. Standing in line at the bank wasn't an act of patriotism. It was compliance enforced by fear. Americans handed over family gold coins, saved wealth heirlooms, bars, certificates, promising gold redemption, all of it gone. To this day, historians debate whether this was theft or a necessary evil, but one thing is certain, it was the largest government seizure of wealth in US history, and it was just the beginning. Section 5, The Twist. The real motive: people turned in their gold. The vaults filled up, but what happened next is the twist most people never learn. Just months after Americans were forced to surrender their gold for $20.67 an ounce, the government revalued gold to $35 an ounce. That's a 69% increase overnight. Think about what that means. If you had owned gold, your wealth would have skyrocketed. But you didn't, because the government took it at the old price. The gain, it went straight to the US Treasury. This single move instantly increased the government's balance sheet by billions. Billions in 1933 terms, at a time when money was worth far more. This wasn't just a gold grab. It was a wealth transfer on a scale the modern world had never seen, and it gave the government something even more valuable, the freedom to print more money. With more gold valued at a higher price, the government could legally expand the money supply and inject liquidity into the collapsing economy. In other words, the government solved the crisis by absorbing private wealth and then redefining its value. This is the part they definitely don't teach in school. Section 6 Fallout. What happened to the gold standard after the seizure? The US government controlled nearly all the gold in the country, but control wasn't enough. The real goal, to loosen the chains of the gold standard without admitting it. Here's how it played out. 1. The government pumped money into the economy with its new gold valuation. It could expand credit, finance programs, and stimulate spending. 2. The dollar was no longer fully redeemable by citizens. You could hold dollars but not gold. You could save money but not the asset that protected you from inflation. 3. Foreign nations continued redeeming dollars for gold. This would eventually lead to another crisis decades later. What started as a temporary emergency measure became permanent. America's relationship with gold was never the same. Section 7 The long tail. When the gold grab came full circle, flash forward to 1971. Foreign governments, especially France, were cashing in their dollars for gold faster than the US could supply it. Once again, the Treasury's gold was draining. Once again, the dollar was in danger. And once again, the government responded. President Richard Nixon announced the end of gold convertibility. The final link between the dollar and gold was broken. No more redemption, no more golden anchor. The dollar became purely fiat-backed, not by gold, but by confidence, policy, debt, and military power. The 1933 gold grab wasn't just a one-time act. It was the first domino in a chain of events that led to unlimited money printing, rising debt, central banking dominance, inflationary cycles, and a financial system where money could be created at will. The grab was the turning point. The consequences are still unfolding. Section 8 Modern Parallels. History repeats itself, so how does this old story connect to today? More than you think. Because although the government no longer confiscates gold, the same mechanisms of wealth transfer still exist, just in different forms. Let's break it down. In 1933, the government seized gold to expand the money supply. Today, it does that by printing money directly. The result, prices rise, savings shrink, debt grows cheaper, and wealth moves quietly from citizens to the state. Inflation has become the invisible tax. The Federal Reserve in 1933 gained unprecedented control. Today, its power is even greater. Interest rates, liquidity injections, quantitative easing, emergency facilities. The same institution that once demanded gold now controls the value of your money through policy, not metal. Executive Order 6102 was justified as a temporary emergency measure. But temporary government powers rarely stay temporary. After 9/11, the Patriot Act, after 2008, unlimited bailouts, after 2020, shutdown authority, stimulus injections, record deficits after every crisis, a new expansion of government reached. The gold grab set a precedent. In an emergency, the rules of property can change. The US government increased the value of gold to boost its balance sheet. Today, governments boost their balance sheets through debt, trillions of dollars created with a keystroke. Back then they grabbed gold. Today they grab value through inflation. Different tool, same effect. Did the gold grab fix the Great Depression? Not really. It provided temporary relief. It allowed more government spending. It stabilized banks somewhat, but unemployment remained high for years. Business investment lagged. Confidence took decades to recover. The deeper problems, deflation, debt, inequality, structural weaknesses, didn't disappear overnight. In fact, some historians argue that the gold grab itself delayed recovery by undermining trust. Others argue it prevented total collapse. But whether it helped or hurt long-term stability is still debated. What's not debated is its legacy. The US government learned that controlling money, not gold, was the path to power, and that lesson shaped everything that came later. So what can we learn from the biggest gold confiscation in American history? Here are 3 key takeaways. 1. Financial systems can change overnight. One day, gold ownership was legal. The next day, it wasn't. If the foundation of money can shift that quickly, it means no financial system is permanent. 2. Governments act aggressively in crises. They will use extraordinary powers. They will override old laws. They will take what they need to stabilize the system or themselves. The gold grab wasn't the first example, and it wasn't the last. 3. The most important events in financial history are rarely taught. This story fundamentally shaped the dollar, US monetary policy, global finance, inflation, debt, modern central banking, yet most people have never heard of it. Sometimes what's left out of the textbooks is more important than what's included. So here's the question you're left with. If the government could seize gold once, change its value, and rewrite the rules of money, what else could it do in the next crisis? Because history doesn't repeat perfectly, but it does rhyme. And every time a new emergency hits, governments reach for extraordinary powers. Maybe not gold confiscation, maybe something new, maybe digital, maybe financial, maybe subtle, maybe invisible. But the pattern is always the same. Control the money, control the wealth, control the people. If you found this story eye-opening, subscribe for more deep dives into the financial secrets they never teach in school. Hit the like button so more people discover this hidden chapter of history. And drop a comment telling me, should gold ever be made illegal again? Or is money built on trust, not metal? Thanks for watching. Stay curious, and keep questioning what they tell you about money.